What's up, everybody? Day 7 of the Karen Reed trial. We're going to react to it, recap it today. This is day 7 of the Commonwealth's case. They are putting witnesses on that are explaining situations to us for the very first time. So we're going to see if they're connecting any dots, if they're starting to build a case against Karen Reed, how this case is going for the Commonwealth after 7 days of evidence and testimony. So get your questions in. We're going to get them answered tonight. We're going to talk through everything that happened today. Hit that like button if you haven't already, and let's get to it. All right. So the witness that ended the day yesterday started today. Nothing really happened. No cross-examination. But the first witness that we heard from in full today was Michael Camerano. And basically the gist of the witnesses that we heard from today, if I was going to do a summary here in about 10 seconds, it was everybody that was at the bar that knew John O'Keefe and Karen Reed the night/morning of his death. We had friends, we had acquaintances, we had bartenders, all testifying to what they heard and saw. And why that's important is John O'Keefe, this was some of the last evidence of him alive. Okay. So it's important, for the first time we're hearing about this from the first witnesses that the state calls in this case, connect the dots and tell the story the state wants told. So when the state chooses their witnesses, their witness list, the order in which they're going to call them, what they want to bring out through each witness, they have a plan. They have a timeline. They have a way that they want the evidence to come out. If we can compare it with another trial we're watching at the same time, as Chad Daybell. The state has a story in that case. They're telling the story. The story's pretty consistent throughout the witnesses, with some minor inconsistencies here and there that the defense has brought out. So how is the Commonwealth telling the story in this case? Well, we know that it was snowing. We know visibility was bad. We know it was hard to hear. We know at least some people heard Karen Reed say, "I hit him." Okay. We know they collected blood, a piece of a cocktail glass, damage to her vehicle. We don't know how many of those things connect together and prove that she, in fact, committed a crime that resulted in the death of John O'Keefe. So maybe today, when we get the bar scene, we're going to see her. And I'll just tell you what I was kind of expecting to see. I was expecting maybe to see Karen Reed and John O'Keefe pounding drinks. I was definitely expecting to see somebody very clearly carry a cocktail glass out of this bar. I was expecting them to leave drunk. I was expecting them maybe to be fighting. I was expecting some text messages about them, being angry at each other, whatever it may be. I was expecting to see, a bunch of people here, some of them saying they're going there, maybe Karen Reed and John O'Keefe saying we're going to go somewhere else and then we'll meet you at 34 Fairview later. Things like that. So what did we see? Well, Michael Camerano testified, all these guys basically are friends with John O'Keefe. Kids play sports with his kids. Text messages between them and John and his wife, and maybe Karen sometimes, group chats, proud of their kids, linking up, how their cars were situated. We got some laughs in the gallery, which again just makes me think it's so sad when he talks about, John O'Keefe making sure you took your shoes off in the couch or in the house, or how mad he would have gotten if the snow got into his garage. And it's just really sad to hear those things. Sad to hear, how he is and how he was, and his family, I'm sure, missing those, maybe OCD or idiosyncratic methods and ways of John O'Keefe. And we got some laughs. Also, how he got his buddy to show up at the bar as well, that we hear from later, is he called him the P word, a wussy, to get him to come to the bar. And he says, "You don't call me that. That's all it took." And we got 3 buddies, 3 bros hanging out at the bar in Boston, right? Canton, whatever. And to me, that was cool. And it was sad and kind of nice to see, But this was our first kind of scene of what John O'Keefe was wearing. We see him in a black hat. There are other clips I've seen and circulating online that he had a belt on, obviously wearing 2 shoes, and just this kind of short or light sweatshirt that Camerano said was basically what he wore. He never really wore a heavy, puffy jacket. So when we see them at the bar, the first thing I wanted to pick up was we see very clearly beer bottles. I believe they said it was Bud Light, not cocktail glasses for John O'Keefe. So the first thing I thought maybe, well, that's not the case. And they were drinking beer bottles, and I think this was confirmed. So let's watch a little bit of it.
Steve McCarthy, you went there, had some drinks, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall what you were drinking or what John was drinking that night?
Beer.
Is that sort of typical for the two of you?
Yes.
Do you recall sort of, was that from the tap or bottle or something?
From the bottle.
And do you recall what type of beer typically you would drink or Mr. O'Keefe would drink?
Bud Light.
And do you recall specifically that's what you had that night or that's just what you typically had?
Typically, I think we had Bud Light.
And if you know possibly how many beers or how many drinks did you have over the course of your time at CF McCarthy's?
I don't.
As far as yourself versus Mr. O'Keefe, you recall sort of in relation to each other, how much you each had to drink?
Not, maybe 6 beers.
And what I'm asking, sir, is it's not like, did one of you have 10 and one of you had 2, or was it sort of commensurate with each other?
Commensurate, one for one.
So essentially you're buying rounds as you go along.
Correct.
Now,
All right. So it was a beer bottle. They point that out. But then later, we do see a cocktail glass of some sort come into play. Here's Karen Reed in all black walking in. And so she walks in. We're going to watch how they greet each other because that's going to come up for discussion later. And then we'll see her grab a glass.
with reference to Ms. Reed, what, if anything, do you recall her drinking during your time that you were both at CF McCarthy's that night?
She was drinking out of a glass.
And if you know, what if anything did you observe as far as the color of what was in the glass?
It was clear.
And beyond sort of the clear liquid in the glass, what, if anything else, did you observe in the glass as far as a straw, fruit, anything like that?
A straw, maybe.
And what, if anything, did you know what was in the glass?
I didn't.
And as far as you could tell what was in the glass?
Vodka?
Is that something that Ms. Reed would typically drink if you had been out with her on prior occasions?
Yes.
Now,
so hugs and kisses all around. More on that later. But we're going to see, you know, her be handed a glass here.
bit of the CF.
Did I skip it? There it is. Okay, you see it with a little cucumber in the drink. You can kind of just see it over John O'Keefe's left shoulder. John O'Keefe is in the gray and white hoodie, and her glass is right there in front of the beer bottle. Okay, so I see a glass there. Good. At least we got a glass. At least hopefully they're going to start connecting some dots. And I saw a lot of these comments come in. You could see him pick up the glass on his way out from Waterfalls. He does walk out at the end with a glass, I believe. So here's my issue with these comments. Why didn't the state have anybody point that out? Why didn't they make a big deal about John O'Keefe leaving with a glass? Maybe it's coming later. But one thing that really just kind of blows my mind is we have been hearing evidence for 7 days. It's a lime. Somebody said a lime. Sorry. All right. Sorry. I'm not a drinker. So I thought it was a cucumber. Okay. I'm sorry. But we've been hearing evidence for 7 days. Okay. 75 to 80% of the trials I've ever done myself, more than 50% of the trials in the United States of America are done, completely done in less than 7 days. Okay. And the Commonwealth has been putting on evidence for 7 days. And this is what we have. We have so much background about what first responders and what cops do, about what people did before they came to the bar, about what sports their kids play, about how long they've known each other, about where they grew up. We have so much of that background. That testimony, that timeline, the snow, where they are, how they knew each other, that's all really important. But you don't have to have 5 witnesses testify to every one of those things. And that is really frustrating to me, as it seems like it's taking forever to make simple background points. And these are the witnesses they chose to put out first. Okay. They chose to put these witnesses out first. So the first people we heard describe the scene of where John's body was found were those first responders. The first people they have describe the scene at the bar are these people. So keep that in mind. The state, the Commonwealth chose these witnesses, and they chose them to be the first ones to describe this scene for us. And this is what they get. The evidence and testimony we are about to go through today is their first, and I would assume, best evidence about what happened at the bar and connecting the dots. So this guy, Michael Camerano, had to leave. His son got hit in the face with a hockey stick, lost his tooth. I mean, is there a more Boston thing? And then his wife basically told him Karen called and John O'Keefe didn't come home. And so he went to get John O'Keefe's daughter. Wife left to go help them find John O'Keefe, I believe. Unless that was Roberts' wife. I may have gotten that mixed up. On Cross, he's buddies. They were excited about the school acceptance. Never saw Karen and John fight. Only thing John ever complained about Karen was that she spoiled the kids. Wow, how horrible of her. Never a hint that he wanted to break up with her. They were affectionate, greeting, kissing, hugging, all of that the night at the bar. And he's going to compare how they were that night with how they were throughout their entire relationship here, just to end the cross. Short and sweet. The defense is getting in and out of cross. And basically this turned into a character witness for what a great relationship they had and what a great person Karen Reed is, basically, is what the defense turned him into. That's what I felt like after listening to him. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments. If you guys disagree, I want to hear it. This is the first I've ever heard of this guy, or first I'm seeing what he's going to say. I didn't know any of this was coming. I expected that he was going to be a great evidence for a great witness for the state, and to say they were fighting, she was drunk, whatever. And instead it's the opposite.
Tension between them and see partners. Is that right?
Not that I recall.
All right. I want to normal, affectionate, laughing, happy couple that you were used to seeing, correct?
Yes.
There didn't seem to be any tension between them and see partners. Is that right?
Not that I recall.
All right. I want to ask a couple of more questions. During the span of time that you knew them to be together, would you describe their relationship as being normal and caring?
Objection.
I'll sustain that.
I want to just draw your attention to the month before Mr. O'Keefe's passing. Would you describe their relationship to be normal as far as you knew it to be?
Yes.
And on the day before Mr. O'Keefe's passing, would you describe their interactions to be normal and caring and affectionate?
Yes.
That's all I have.
So in the months prior and the day all this happened, they were normal, affectionate couple. That is, I'll just say, I mean, from my perspective, from somebody watching this case, I didn't know anything about it coming into it. Okay. I didn't know what these people were supposed to testify to. That seemed to be the biggest part of his testimony. That seemed to be the most important part of his testimony. And if this is what this guy was going to testify to, let the defense call him. If I'm the state, I just want to call one person, lay the timeline out, and that's it. Because the defense, I'll be honest with you, I don't think the judge would allow, and I think she might be okay in not allowing the defense to call all 6 of these people to talk about what a great couple they were. That would be potentially cumulative. Call one person to talk about what a great couple they are, then fine. But instead, because the state decided to call all of these witnesses to get the same background story, basically, and where everybody went, and I'm sure there could be some important dots that may be connected later. I'm not saying there's not. But the defense got to ask this same type of question to every person that testified that was there that night. And the next person was this guy's wife, Catherine Camerano, I believe her name was. And Karen called her saying, "Where's Mike?" It was an unusual call. Karen was with Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts, which are the 2 women that were at the scene. And it was the wee hours of the phone of the morning, 5 a.m. And she goes out and tries to look for her. And then they went through some text messages, and the state or the Commonwealth tries to use this, something we heard before, like, is this the last you ever heard from Karen Reed? And the answer was yes. But we get a little context here after the Commonwealth goes through that.
Now, Ms. Camerano, if I could direct your attention to sort of the content of this. There's essentially the blue bubbles and green bubbles. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is there an indication on there as far as who the message is from and who the message is to?
The blue bubbles would be me texting Karen.
And if you could, starting with the first bubble on page 1, if you could just describe to the jury, and we'll sort of go through it as far as who the text is from and what content is.
That's from me. I'm asking Karen, are you okay?
Ms. Gellman, if you could scroll down. And this next bubble.
Go back home so you're safe with Kaylee. He'll end up home. I bet he's on someone's couch.
And the next bubble down, Ms. Gellman.
What's going on, Karen?
could scroll down a little further. So,
I'm driving around with Carrie and Jen.
and this is the text that you received from
From-
the three of you. So,
Yes.
and is there a time on that associated with when that text was sent?
Um, I can't read this from there. 5:53, does it say?
5:53 a.m. Is that correct? Text message.
Okay, is one of them driving?
And just to be clear, this is you texting me.
I'm texting Karen, yes. Is one of them driving? And then,
And why were you texting that? Why were you concerned about that?
because she was so hysterical, I didn't want her driving.
Not because she was so drunk, right? Not because I knew she had been drinking at the bar all night. I knew she was hysterical. I thought that was interesting too. It's like, but this also goes back to, if this was a cover up and the Commonwealth is engaged in a cover up, why aren't these witnesses just saying whatever they want them to say? And maybe these people aren't involved in it, and that's what people tell me. I don't know. But it definitely doesn't seem like the Commonwealth has a bunch of bought and paid for witnesses. A couple of them were definitely less than credible. But I thought these people today were incredibly credible. I felt so sad that they lost their friend, somebody in their inner circle, somebody in their kids' lives. It sucks. It really sucks. And it's really, really sad.
And Dennis, if you could scroll down to the next message. And what if any response you received from this week?
Yes.
Dennis, if you could, scroll down to the next.
And I said, okay, keep me posted.
If you could scroll down.
At his brother's or mom's, ? Or the station he works at.
Both of those messages, about what time were those?
6 a.m.
And what if any, if you could scroll down, and then what if any response you received from the defendant this week following those things?
I don't think so. His bro is in West Bridgewater, W Bridgewater.
Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down again. Next message, ma'am.
Right, I'm sorry, I'm just brainstorming.
Next green bubble, ma'am.
It's okay.
And the blue bubble below that.
Any luck?
And that was text you sent at approximately what time, ma'am?
6:34.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down. Next. And what was this
Then-
week's response?
He's dead.
And again, what time did you receive that text message from
6:34.
Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down.
What, Karen? Are you serious?
That's a blue bubble, your response to her last statement.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, scroll down again.
And then, Karen, do you have any idea where he is, or did you find him?
Lastly, Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down one more time.
He was in the snow.
And that last message that you received, what time was that?
That was at 6:36.
Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. And Mr. Rosser, if you could avoid that. Thank you. Following that text message, the last one about 6:34 a.m., what if any other communication did you have with the defendant that morning?
Nothing.
What if any other communication did you have with the defendant since then?
None.
So that was the last time she and Karen Reed ever texted or talked, which does not look good for Karen Reed. I think that's a good fact to be brought out by the Commonwealth. But the defense has a response.
Now, as far as any of the other people that you spoke of, as far as talking to that morning, Ms. Roberts or Haley, did you have any further conversation with them in regards to what was going on?
No.
If I may have just one moment. Your Honor. Nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. To Mr. Lawley's last point, after that series of text messages that you had early in the morning on January 29th, 2022, you said you didn't hear from Ms. Reed or didn't have any communication with her after that. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you reach out to her text message wise?
No.
Were you aware that her phone had been seized shortly thereafter from her?
No.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, Ms. Kim.
And I'll tell you what, he asked her husband some other questions. It was a short cross, but it was definitely longer than that. But he wanted to make sure that that point was highlighted because the Commonwealth has said it multiple times. They've asked multiple witnesses that. He wanted to make that point. So now the jury knows, and it's the only thing they're going to remember from Cross. Mama Pink said this is some of the best defense lawyering she's ever seen. The state has lost their investigative integrity, in my opinion. I think it has been really good. I think they have done a good job. I don't think the state has been horrible. I think I'm scratching my head from time to time. It doesn't seem to me so far like they've done anything unethical or tried to do anything underhanded like we've seen in some trials. So we'll give them credit for that. I'm hoping they're laying the foundation slowly, and maybe even a little bit in a boring way, but that the dots will all come together later. John asked, witness presented via the Commonwealth, number 1, law enforcement, 2, meaning relationships. Number 3, I hope there are accident scene experts. What direction do you think the Commonwealth is going, Peter? So I would hope and think that the Commonwealth, if they brought this case and are putting a woman's life on the line, literally, and trying to get justice for someone who lost his life and his family and loved ones, that they have either camera footage or other testimony about where he went, what he had, how he ended up there, that they have car data that shows she backed in, sped backwards, slammed on the brakes, and then left that area, that they can prove it happened, right in front of the 34 Fairview, maybe some tire marks or things like that in the grass, even after the snow melted. Accident reconstructionists, medical and biomechanical experts about how your body would move and how the damage lines up with him being injured. Some blood alcohol content that she was in fact drunk. Proof that she was behind the wheel outside of her just saying I hit him, or somebody like we see today saying she walked to the driver's side of the car. I hope they have cell phone text messages about, how they're angry at each other and hate each other, and they hope they never see each other again and it's over, fighting, whatever, even if it's just angry for that moment, because second-degree murder does not have to be a long planned out thing. The depraved heart, or the, what do they call it? The words escaping me. Basically, you walk in on your wife with another man and you take the life. That's second-degree murder. You didn't plan it. It wasn't a long, drawn-out thing. You just reacted and were angry and wanted to hurt the person that you hurt. So something that shows that kind of motive. That's the type of evidence I hope is coming, because we know what, where, and when at this point. Thank you, Roro and Ashley, for gifting memberships tonight. If you guys want to become a member, you can hit that join button below. Lots of cool stuff happening for the members here. And make sure you guys hit that like button if you haven't already. All right, next is Kurt Roberts, who was the guy that was called the wuss, who showed up to the bar. Can't have that happen. He confirms there was a snowstorm. Again, we never met. The defense loves to start with that. And then on cross, John wasn't wearing a puffy jacket. He interacted with Karen Reed, didn't think she was drunk, didn't notice them fighting or complaining about each other. A lot of them confirmed Karen Reed would pick up their kids sometimes. They trusted her to take their kids. She was caring for the kids. They seemed to have a fine relationship. And then a very common redirect question is, yeah, but you don't know what happens behind closed doors, right? And again, there's only one way that lands. And just like I said about the defense, I'm going to say the same thing about the Commonwealth. I hope they have the goods. If they're going to make little inferences like that, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I hope we find out what is going on behind closed doors, not because I'm nosy, but because the jury needs to know what was really going on in their relationship. If everybody else thought they had a great lovey-dovey relationship, how can you prove what's going on behind closed doors? Obviously, text messages or emails or recorded calls or things like that could shed some light, and maybe that's coming. I'm hoping that's coming, and I'm not saying I'm hoping that's coming because I hope Karen Reed gets convicted or is guilty. I'm saying I hope that's coming because they've charged this case, which means the Commonwealth has to believe they can prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if not, they should have never brought it. Naomic says, do lawyers tell their clients what a sidebar is about? I'm always so curious. Yes. So usually we'll come back and tell them, quick, like, we're going to be allowed to get into the bar fight. We're going to be allowed to get into the cocktail glass, whatever. We'll just tell them something like that. Maybe not all the arguments that we made. St. Katie said, I felt so bad for Karen today. Sounds like they had a nice relationship. Sad for everyone in his life. I agree. Alicia, I don't feel sad for her if she did it, right? So I think we gotta wait and see. I guess I still feel sad. I still feel sad at how all this ended up. And especially if she didn't do this, it's horrifying. Alicia, why can cameras zoom in on defendants in some cases, but not others? We need consistency in our criminal justice system. So what's interesting about that is the lack of consistency is almost by design. Judges have discretion, and this is a judicial decision. Each state has their own different rules. Each county and local jurisdictions have their local rules. So everything is done a little bit differently. Federal court, state court, styles, what judges do, how stickler they are. All of that can change depending on the courtroom you're in and the judge that you're before. Jason said, in your opinion, do you think the O'Keefe family stands with the Commonwealth or are they on the side of Karen Reed? I have no clue. I have been told that they're on the side of the Commonwealth. That's really all I have at this point. Thank you, Mary Claire, for gifting 5 memberships. All right, then we get to Rebecca Trayers, the bartender at Waterfall Bar and Grill. They keep the lights on. I think they said they closed around 12:15 this night. She knew John O'Keefe. She knew of Chris Albert. I think she mentioned 7 Alberts total on cross that she knew. The most important thing, again, that I found from her, so they talked about the receipts. She talked to the state police, all of that. And, they saw how many drinks they had. It was only $16. She left a $10 tip, good tipper or whatever, but not 20 beers, right? Maybe there's more coming. I don't know. Maybe they went to 3 more bars after this. I have no idea. I'm just talking about what evidence is in front of me. But what I thought the most important evidence that came out through her, because we got to remember there's a drunk driving element to this case, is that on cross, she answered, the defense was like, you make sure people aren't overserved, right? That's your job. That's part of your job as a bartender. And on this night, did anybody seem super drunk to you? Anybody seem highly intoxicated to you? And she said, no. Nobody seemed highly intoxicated that night. Charicity said most of the people they called today were initially on the defense witness list and they decided to call them instead. So sometimes, again, like we talk about eating the bruises on an apple or cutting them out or trying to do the M&M, I can tell you everything you have to say against me. Maybe that's what the Commonwealth is trying to do. Make it seem like we're not hiding anything. We're calling these witnesses. I think that's a mistake. I think everybody in this case knows the defense is going to call witnesses. Let them call these people. I think the judge might have limited some of their testimony if the defense would have called them. Maybe not. But if you're the Commonwealth, just call the people you need to call and prove your case. Sometimes jurors will make up their mind before the defense even has a crack at it. So why put out this evidence for the defense, and why put it out so early on a 4 to 6 week trial? The first week and a half, almost 2 weeks, this is the evidence you're putting out. Usually you come out with your best stuff first. You want to convince that jury, then have them looking for confirmation bias throughout the case where they're like, yeah, that lines up, that matches up, that dot's connecting. That's what they told us was going to happen. Boom. They forget about what the defense said in their opening, and the defense doesn't even get to start calling witnesses till 3 or 4 weeks into the case. And now they've got an uphill battle. That's how you want to build it if you're the Commonwealth. Ashley, Peter, how are you feeling about the ATF agent Brian Higgins being at the bar and then showing up at the police station at 1:30 sus? I mean, I want to see what he did, what he knows, how involved he was. Because I got to be honest, Lank, and I thought Lank, when the Commonwealth said they're overestimating or overstating his involvement in the case, I disagree. I think he was pretty importantly involved in this case, and I didn't love that. So I'm open. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that yet. All right. My favorite witness of the day, and can anybody tell me why this guy may have been my favorite witness? But this was the bartender, by the way, just in case you want to see what she looks like. And then this guy was my favorite witness of the day. Does anybody know why? His name it has nothing to do with what he said or his testimony or anything like that. But his name is Nicholas Kolokithas. And he is an attorney, but not only is he an attorney, he's Greek. I'm pretty sure he's Greek, at least. They didn't tell me he's Greek, but Kolokithas definitely sounds Greek. And Nick is about as Greek of a name as you can get if it's not Peter or George. So the Greek lawyer, right? He is called. He's, again, kids, friends, know each other, went to the waterfall afterwards. Nobody gets in between him and his food. His kids told his daughter to come, or his wife to come, so she shows up. He left Waterfall around 12:10. They were a couple minutes later than the rest of the people. Everybody's saying he's Greek and an attorney. You guys got it. He had on cross, he had no problem leaving the kids in Karen's care. And again, he was asked very similar questions about their relationship. And we're going to listen to what he has to say. Again, this is a witness that the state decided to call in the first quarter of their case, right? This is the first quarter of their case. It's still quote unquote early on in the case for a 4 to 6 week trial.
Child at the
And this is Cross, just to remind everybody.
13th birthday party?
I did not.
Did you?
By the way, sorry, I keep interrupting him, but this guy's a lawyer. So you got to be careful on Cross sometimes when you're crossing lawyers, especially if they're adverse witnesses. But it certainly did not seem like this guy was an adverse witness to the defense. I don't know. I have no idea. I assumed he was because the state called him, so I don't know.
I don't know. She generally keeps a social calendar for the kids, but I don't know if she did.
So it could have been a situation, Mr. Kolokithas, in which you just dropped the child off and
Yes, correct.
with the birthday party.
Correct.
Okay, fair enough. But you had no problems or no qualms with Ms. Reed, Mr. O'Keefe being caretakers over your children.
Absolutely not.
You said that you didn't socialize as couples all that often, but there were times in which you did socialize with them.
Yes.
About how many times would you say?
A handful of times, maybe,
Okay, 5 or 6
if that,
over the course of how long?
since 2020 to 2022, 2 years, less than 2 years.
Focusing your attention more toward the end of that time period that you just mentioned, for 2022, when you socialized with Ms. Reed and Mr. O'Keefe, did you ever see any sort of tension between the two of them?
Not at all.
Did they seem like a normal, loving couple?
Absolutely.
They seem like they were affectionate and normally affectionate with one another?
Absolutely.
Did you ever have any questions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt in this Commonwealth witness's mind about their relationship that night. And guess what? What do jurors trust the most? Their own eyes and ears. And what can they see on that video? An affectionate couple. It lines up with what all these witnesses are saying. That's the most consistent part of the trial yet.
About the nature of their relationship, any toxicity in the relationship, or any overt indicators that they weren't getting along?
Not to my knowledge, not at all.
Matter of fact, you spent more time with Mr. O'Keefe.
Yes.
Anybody else in the force, correct?
Yes. Well, other than my wife. I mean, of course.
That's a good catch. You're going to pay for that later. Fair enough.
I get brownie points for that, right?
Let me see if I can restate it a little bit better. Between Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed, you spent more time with Mr. O'Keefe.
Yes.
Fair enough. You knew that Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed had rekindled a previous relationship from years earlier,
Yes, I did.
and you knew that Mr. O'Keefe was excited about that.
Yes.
I want to draw your attention to the late night hours of January 28th, going into the early morning hours of January 29th, if I could, specifically at the waterfall. Did you get to the waterfall before Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed got there?
Yes, I did.
How long before?
So I got there around 9 and they got there shortly before 11. So 2 hours.
While at the waterfall, did you have an opportunity to speak with Ms. Reed or Mr. O'Keefe just in normal conversation?
Yes, I did.
You engaged both of them, as a matter of fact, didn't you?
Yes.
Was there a time in which Ms. Reed was actually singing John's praises that night?
Yes, I did.
What a great daddy was.
Yep.
Objection, move to strike.
I'm going to strike that. Next question.
At any point, did you have an opportunity to hear Mr. O'Keefe talk about Ms. Reed and the nature of their relationship, or any events surrounding their relationship?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
I had heard that they were planning vacations in the future.
Were you aware of the time frame of those vacations in the future? Next week, next month, next year?
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Jurors feel
Skipping the sidebar.
Ms. Reed, that comes to mind in terms of any kind of tension or fight that night?
Tension or fight? Absolutely not.
No argument that was audible to you?
Absolutely not.
You didn't see any body language between the two of them that would suggest an argument or fight or tension?
In fact, I noticed the opposite.
Describe that.
They were affectionate toward each other, loving toward each other, and to the point where my wife even made a comment, why are you not like that with me?
Get some.
I mean, that's huge. He volunteered that. He wanted to say it. Like with this witness on stand, I felt like he was just waiting to talk about how great their relationship was and how lovey-dovey they were. Lenova said, for me, I don't think she did it on purpose, so it doesn't matter that much about their relationship. I think they had good times and fights, but I don't think it was intentional if he was hit by the car. And I think that's very possible, and I'm open to this being the truth. My problem with that is, do you know who gets to pick the charges that they charge the defendant with? The Commonwealth. And what did they choose to charge her with? The highest charge? Second-degree murder. So I have to believe that there's at least some evidence coming of a fight or something she got angry about that night. They referenced her getting angry on a trip because he kissed somebody on the cheek and, she was jealous about an old flame that he had. So I think something like that has to be coming. And that's why I think this relationship testimony is actually rather important. If it was just a negligent homicide, which they're going for as well, then I would agree with you. This maybe matters a little bit less. And it was just drunk driving and she accidentally and tragically killed a loved one, because that happens too, and it's brutal. Tom said, Peter, the zone is flooded with dots, but few connections. Is that the strategy? A picture full of dots that make up a picture. By the way, let's get to 350,000 subscribers. Yes, everybody subscribe. It's like the numbers are like 40+% of you don't subscribe that watch. So hit that subscribe button. It's free. It's awesome. And memberships, not free, is a lot of fun. Thank you, Tom. I don't think that's usually not a great strategy that you put so many dots and you don't connect them together and you hope together they all come to a picture. It is cool when you watch a video of somebody doing something like that where they draw it upside down or something and they flip it and wow. So maybe the state's just playing that kind of a game and they're so far ahead and we're all going to see the picture come together later. I don't know. But I don't see a lot of dot connecting yet. And that's not what you're describing here. Maybe that's what they're doing, but that's definitely not the simplest way to handle a case like this. And they'd be reinventing the wheel, which is not usually the best thing to do in law. We don't like to have original ideas in law. That's why precedent rules.
Live up to.
Yes, that's why I needed the brownie points earlier.
I want to shift gears for a second and pinpoint another time at the bar. Was there a time at the bar where you noticed any individuals with their fists up and engaged in some sort of conduct that looks a little like this?
No, I didn't observe that.
You don't recall that?
So he doesn't remember that, which to me tells me he's also not. And they said, like, we didn't meet with you. We didn't coach you. We didn't interview you with him and his wife. So if he was really in the bag for the defense, he would have remembered this. He would have elaborated on this. This would have been a really big point for the defense, but he didn't remember. So what does the defense do? They show him the video.
The person in the far right?
Yes, I do.
Who's that?
Me.
And what do you appear to be looking at, if anything?
I appear to be looking in that direction.
Okay. Can we go ahead and play this forward? So this, do you recall engaging with the two men in any sort of conversation, the two men with their backs facing to us?
I mean, I can see it. I honestly do not recall it, but yeah.
Do you recall ever being introduced to those two gentlemen?
Yes.
Who are they?
Brian Albert, Brian Higgins.
And which one is which? Left and right?
Left is Albert, right is Higgins.
We're going to play this?
So this witness is clearly there watching him. They play fight a little bit. And I was like, I mean, okay, what's the big deal? And Ashley said it plants the seed about possible play fighting turning bad later at the house. That's kind of a leap. It's kind of a leap. I know that you've been following this case closely, so you know a lot more than I do. And that's maybe the defense's theory, and maybe they have more evidence of that. But I mean, two guys messing around at a bar is a leap to say that they then went and beat up their friend, or horseplay turned fatal. And instead of calling the cops and reporting an accident, they create this elaborate cover up. So I can understand why people may think that's a little far fetched if that's what they're trying to do with this kind of play fighting scene. And here you go. You see them just horsing around, pretending like they're play fighting. The two bigger dudes right under the timestamp. So, Melissa, this is a good question. And the answer is usually yes when you call the witnesses. But sometimes you actually can prep adverse witnesses or witnesses that the other side may call. If they're either friendly towards you, or if you take a deposition, you've talked to them before, you know what they're going to say. It doesn't seem like that happened here. Not every jurisdiction allows you to take deposition before a case. And in federal court, sometimes you can't as well. But in this situation, they made it clear at the beginning of cross that we've never talked. We've never interviewed you. We didn't prepare you. We didn't tell you what to say, basically. So in this situation, these witnesses that are turning good for the defense, they were not prepped by them. Mary Claire said, I've not made up my decision on guilt versus innocence, but I formed a definite opinion on the judge, ! What is it, Mary Claire? What's your opinion on the judge?
Mr. Kolokithas, can I draw your attention to the upper right? Do you recognize the person facing the camera in the upper right corner?
Yes, I do.
Who's that?
John O'Keefe.
30 more seconds, sorry.
Okay.
Your Honor, we've paused at 11:08. If I could ask a couple of other questions, and I think we can leave the lights down because I'm going to ask another, with the court's permission, another clip be played. Mr. Kolokithas, you indicated that you don't recall the events that you're seeing. Is that still the case, or is your recollection been refreshed about what you were witnessing?
I honestly don't remember what appears to be play fighting. I don't remember that.
So he just doesn't remember it. Again, it seems like an absolutely credible witness to me. Be a Good Human said, so far to me, the Commonwealth is only showing that whatever happened is an accident with zero intent. Now, I have to think that because they charged second degree, that there's going to be more. We're not done with the trial yet. Melissa Kay said, the witnesses all said they never spoken to the defense attorney before. So how could they have been on the defense's witness list before? So you can put state witnesses on your witness list. In most cases, we actually say all of our witnesses plus any and all witnesses on the state's list. So you can call them if you want to. Sometimes it's strategic. I have had defense attorneys say, we're going to call this doctor that your client went to if you don't call him. And I said, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm not worried about what any doctor is going to say about my client that treated my client because I have the records. I know what they're going to say. And they usually don't call them. It's actually never happened where they call them. I always hope they do. Sometimes I prep the doctor. Sometimes I don't. You can do whatever. It can be strategy. You can put them on there and not actually call them. You can prep some. You can not prep others. There's a lot of strategy in being a lawyer. A lot of strategy.
If we could move to runtime 1636 with the court's permission.
Okay.
Your Honor, when you play 1636. Go ahead. And pausing. Do you see yourself in the upper right-hand corner?
Yes, I do.
And do you see the two individuals, Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, in the foreground?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I saw somebody on Twitter saying, one thing we've learned today is when you play fight at a bar as a grown man, you look like a dork. And I agree. I think it's just kind of like dorky. These guys don't look like they're getting ready to go beat somebody up or end the life of their friend and create a cover up because they were horsing around like dorks at a bar. I can't imagine. I guarantee, if I've ever been out with my buddies or at a bar or whatever in college, even though I wasn't drinking, I can guarantee you we would look like idiots probably on multiple nights at the bar, and people watching it with no sound would be like, what are those losers doing? I'm sure of it. So I'm not sure how much this proves. We'll see again if the defense connects some dots here.
Pause it. Do you see at this point, I know it's difficult, do you see John O'Keefe anywhere in the frame at this juncture?
I do not see him.
Okay. Okay. Pause. And now taking a look at the individual in the top of the screen, do you see that person?
Yes, I do.
Who's that?
John O'Keefe.
And what direction? Is he facing us or facing away from us?
He's facing us. It looks like he's facing us.
So he would be facing the two individuals with their back to us?
Yes.
And it appears to be standing across the table, across the bar table.
Yes.
I'm going to play that for a second.
I get it, Melanie. That's exactly what we're doing. We got 4 to 6 weeks. I was just hoping the Commonwealth would come with more sooner.
With that, I would ask you who this individual is with the fur coat,
My wife.
hanging on the coat.
It's my wife.
Okay. And are you still in the same spot, upper right-hand corner?
Yes, I am.
And where's Mr. O'Keefe?
Across. He's now facing the other way,
Thank you.
away from us.
We can take this down. With regard to what you just saw, the second incident of what appeared to be two individuals touching each other, did you engage in any sort of roughhousing or play fighting that night?
I did not.
Did you engage in any grappling or wrestling that night?
I did not.
Did you see John O'Keefe engage in any wrestling or grappling or play fighting?
I do not recall him doing that.
Or do you recall him doing any sparring?
I do not recall him doing that.
Do you recall him ever putting his fists up toward any other person in that bar that night?
I do not recall him doing that.
So that's the end of cross. So Krista here, this could be, gamesmanship, but here's what I'll say. Well, I don't think the Commonwealth had to call all of the friends that were at the bar that night, right? They could have called 2 people. And yeah, maybe they would have said Karen and John had great relationships and whatever. That's fine. But I would have called 2 people laid the background. What time did you get there? What time did you leave? How many beers? Drinking out of a bottle. Karen had the glass, whatever. Play fighting or not, whatever you want to get out. Call a couple people. You don't have to call all 6. And if the defense would have called 4 other people that were at the bar, you could be like, whatever. We picked a couple. They picked a couple. We all called a couple from the bar. But if they don't call Proctor, who played such an integral part, and the defense has been highlighting, and we've heard his name 1,000 times already about what he did, who he interviewed, how he led certain parts. If the Commonwealth doesn't call him, that's a red flag to anybody. You don't have to be a legal expert to know that that's a red flag if they don't call Proctor. So that to me is somebody I think the defense would and should call if the state doesn't. And it's going to be a major dropping of the ball by the Commonwealth if they don't call Proctor. Very different with these witnesses, in my opinion. Hopefully you guys can understand the difference I'm trying to connect there in these witnesses and not calling Proctor. Vicky said, play fighting at the house, dog attacks, O'Keefe falls, hits his head, Alberts are dirty, and cover up begins. I have no idea, but man, that seems like a lot for an accident. If they could have covered it up and pinned it on somebody else, couldn't they have just made it all seem like an accident? And if they were really all friends, which again, I see people in the chat saying they weren't friends, it's like, couldn't they have just covered it up into an accident? Like Chad Daybell was able to do that for a few months. All these connected people couldn't do that? Seems like a much easier path to me. What happens if the defense runs flat? Do you mean like they just kind of drop the ball and don't end up proving what they say they're going to prove? I think it could backfire, even though they don't have a burden of proof. I think when you say things like this, you got to come with the goods. And everybody assures me they're going to. And so we're going to continue to follow it and see if that happens. Melissa Kay said, I can't stop laughing about the cucumber. I'm sure I'm going to see that as a meme somewhere. But hey, I know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know. Then there was some redirect. Basically, you don't go deep with John O'Keefe. And then the recross I thought was interesting. Again, he just gets in, gets a little pot shot, and gets out.
Mr. Kolokithas, just one more question. You testified previously at another hearing that Karen Reed, quote, was actually singing John's praises about how good of a person he was, a father figure, for taking in the kids several years ago and, being there for them and praising them and sacrificing his life to raise them, end quote. You remember saying that?
Yes, I do.
Is that true?
100%.
Thank you. So,
All right, Mr. Kolokithas, you are all set, sir.
Thank you.
Your next witness, Mr. Lally?
Yes, Your Honor, I'm about to call Miss Karina Kolokithas to the stand.
Okay.
All right. So then they call his wife to the stand. She reiterated again how great John O'Keefe was for taking care of the kids. And that's what Karen Reed said about John O'Keefe. She wishes they had more time together. That was the only negative thing, basically, is that, his family doesn't step up enough, that John O'Keefe had to do so much, and she admires that about him. They talked about going to a pizza place and other places that night, but ended up saying like, hey, where can we go? Jen McCabe says, we can go to my sister's house, which is the Alberts house, 34 Fairview. It seemed like all of them were going. And let's listen to some of, and this is on direct now. This isn't even on cross. This is on direct examination. The Commonwealth is questioning their witness, and this is how the testimony is coming out. This is Ms. Kolokithas.
Go. I actually said to him, there's no way we're going anywhere. We're going home.
And just to be clear, by him, you mean your husband?
My husband, yeah.
And around the time
They were never going to go to 34 Fairview.
midnight or so when you were leaving, who, if anyone, did you sort of walk out with initially?
So I believe, let me think. It was always Jen, myself, and Karen. So we brought up, and Karen went over to John, something like that. He put his arm around her. I don't know if they had a conversation, they talked. It seemed like they were quite lovey-dovey at that point. And then that's when Jennifer McCabe went up to Karen and said, you're coming with me. And she grabbed her, she put her arm around her, and she said in front of me, she's like, you're coming with me, you're coming with me.
And just to be clear, sort of how she said that, was that in sort of a forceful way? Or
No, joking around, hey, you come with me. We're going to, and Karen said, where are we going? And Jen said, it doesn't matter. It'll be a surprise. It was something like that.
So this was kind of weird to me. Again, I don't know how all these dots are going to be connected, but Jen McCabe comes, puts her arm around Karen, says, you're coming with me, takes her out of the bar. Basically, it's going to be a surprise. She didn't know where they were going. So if she didn't know where they were going, that's weird. I don't understand that. Did John know where they were going? Everybody was kind of talking about it. Nobody really knows what anybody else knows or heard, as we've heard throughout this trial. But I did find it a little bit interesting, and there's a video of it that we're going to watch. And again, I just have more questions than answers at this point, but I thought that was a little bit strange. Laura said, is the defendant allowed to nod or show emotion? Usually not show major emotion, but nod or, be sad sometimes. And they're talking about obviously him or seeing him. I would think yes. It doesn't seem like she's showing a lot. Maybe her lawyers told her not to show emotion, to stay straight faced. Anything they do can be scrutinized. Anything they do can be, basically be like, oh, they're showing too much emotion or not enough emotion. So that can backfire. It's all dependent on the client and the lawyer. They discuss what's most natural and what's best for the case potentially. Shannon, do you think the feds are watching this trial and waiting, or still just doing their own investigation? Both. I would be willing to bet they are at least watching this trial. Yes. Kim said, can you please cover or go over Chad Doerman case where he shot his boys? The case is confusing to throw out admitting he did it. I believe we've done a couple videos on this. So check for the Chad Doerman playlist. We did his initial arrest, I believe, and I believe we did them throwing out his confession and why. So check that out. ABC said, I demand a cucumber repeater merch immediately. I mean, you guys hit me with that like immediately. And when I saw it, I was like, it's like facepalm. All right, let's keep listening to this witness.
And did the three of you sort of walk towards the door to the parking lot together?
Yes.
And where was your husband at this point?
He was behind. He was with Matt McCabe. They were helping the band like clean up and get their stuff together. And it was the three of us in the front, meaning the women.
And at the initial time when you're walking out, you and Mr. Cave and the defendant, where's Mr. O'Keefe?
I'm not a little bit behind us. I'm not sure.
Not directly with your group, but
Not with us. No,
now at some point you get outside of the waterfall, is that correct?
that's correct.
And at some point when you're outside of the waterfall, do you see Mr. O'Keefe at that point?
I did. All of a sudden, it was weird. I see Karen with John, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird." I thought she was going with Jen, and that's just what made me notice it. It was that the whole like Jen wanting Karen to go with her, and then all of a sudden I see Karen with John. I just thought, I was just like, "Oh," so it made me notice it.
And so you proceed to your car, I'm presuming on Washington Street, correct?
That is correct.
And if you recall, which direction was your car facing, like down towards the waterfall or away from the waterfall?
It was away from the waterfall.
And who, if anyone else, did you observe walking in the direction of Washington Street at the same time?
That's when I saw Karen and John walking.
And they were walking in that direction as well?
Correct.
Did you see them approach or get near to some sort of vehicle?
It looked like they were walking towards a black SUV of some sort.
And have you seen either defendant or Mr. O'Keefe in relation to a darker or black SUV prior to that date?
I believe I had, yes.
And whose car did you believe it was?
I thought it was Karen's car.
And which side of that vehicle did you observe Karen walking to?
She was walking to the driver's side, but again, I was more concerned about crossing Washington Street, and there was a little bit of snow at that point. So I didn't see, like I saw them walking in that direction, like her going to the driver's side and John going to the other side, but I didn't see anything after that.
And were they on the same side of the street as you or the opposite?
They were facing the opposite direction.
So you were facing away from the waterfall, they were facing towards the waterfall, is that right?
They were just like, we were in different directions. So I was like, it's hard to explain, but they were facing, like I was facing up and they were facing back.
And different sides of the street, is that correct?
That is correct.
And then on your car, when you
So basically connecting the dot that Karen Reed was driving after the bar and driving her car. So that was a dot that was connected by the Commonwealth. Then we'll see a little bit more of the video. Kind of towards the end of the night. Ashley said, odd that John would grab the glass leaving when Karen was already left. I want to see if I can see that part.
I don't know if that's Matt, Jen. I can't tell because of the barcode up there.
the date and time
But
stamp.
yeah, I can't see who that is.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could play it from this.
Oh, I see John too. Sorry.
Please go ahead.
And I see John. John's right there.
Ms. Gilman, if you could play it from this point till 12:11 and 4 seconds. Ms. Gilman, if you can pause it right there. Now, as far as this is the record at 12:10 and 38, see sort of three individuals going towards the front entrance?
Yes.
So you just have to say.
Yes.
And with respect, if with that laser pointer, if you could just identify for the jury who, if anyone, you recognize from that group.
Okay, so that's Jennifer McCabe, that's me, and that's Karen.
So you're walking sort of towards
They're all walking out together. No cocktail glass in Karen Reed's hand. I'm wondering if I keep playing it, if we're going to see John, who's up here in the top right, pulling up his shirt sleeve. I wonder if we're going to see him walk out with it. So let's play and see what we see.
yeah, exit at the same time, right?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if you could.
Yep. He picks up the glass. And there you go.
There's another individual sort of making their way to the doorway. Do you recognize that person?
Yes, that's John.
That's John O'Keefe.
John O'Keefe, yes.
Exiting from the wall.
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if you could display the last.
And he took a sip out of whatever was in that glass. Why didn't the Commonwealth ask? And he's holding a cocktail glass. Why didn't they ask that? Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's something that's going to come later. He definitely picks up the glass and walks out with it. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Why not connect that dot? At least have the jury say, okay, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. He picks up a glass, takes a sip out of it there, looks around, walks out with the glass. You see how easy it is? Everybody said, why would anybody do a bar with a glass? Like it happens all the time.
There's another individual sort of making their way. Now, Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you from the same exhibits, but from
Now they're outside.
essentially what I'm going to ask Ms. Gilman if you could play this from 12:11 and 0 to 12:11 and 25 seconds. But I'm sorry, first if I could ask you just pause for 1 second. I know it's an awful time.
Repeat the question.
Brian, do you recognize who that is?
It's Karen and John.
So that would be the point in time when you say they sort of link up at the front door and then walk towards Washington Street.
That's correct.
And if you could, just with reference to the screen of
I can't see a glass in his hand. Maybe this is where some of you guys can see that there is a glass in his hand here. I can't see it right here. We'll watch for another second here. Beth said, my biggest question is, what was Higgins doing at the police station building at 1:30 in the morning? I've seen some people say that. I don't know that he was. I have assumed that the defense have something with these login cards and, pinging in and out because they've asked a lot of the officers that. I don't know how they're going to connect it and use it. Maybe it will have to do with this. So I'm going to have to reserve what I think about this until it comes out in evidence. Holly said, these accents are crazy to me. I legit mean that, no joke. What's funny is, so John posted earlier, I went on NBC 10 Boston, and one of the questions they asked me is, besides like our accents, because we know that's always a big deal for somebody in Florida or somebody else around the world that's watching this, what has been different or strange about this case to you? So they know, and it's funny. It's like the first thing that she said to me. So it was kind of funny and kind of cool. Thank you, Azam, for gifting a membership. I see your other comment, Azam. I'm waiting till the end on purpose because it's what they call in the biz a good transition.
looking up here to 53. Where is Washington Street? Were you at Park and where you observed Mr. O'Keefe and Mr. Washington?
So, okay. Trying to think of the buildings. That's the back parking lot where where you see the cars, and you have to take a left.
So directly in front of where Mr. O'Keefe and Mr. Reed are standing is the back parking lot, and then to the left is Washington Street.
Yeah, I think you have to walk that way, and then you'll hit Washington Street.
Ms. Gilman, if you could just play through 25 seconds.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, you guys are on it. You guys are on
Ms.
it.
Gilman, if you could just play through 25 seconds.
Definitely has it in his hand. Good job by you. There it is. Boom. There was already testimony of Higgins being at the police department at 1:30 a.m. Okay, I must have missed that. Remove the CC. Somebody said I was a little behind. Sorry. It's hard for me to follow the chat while I'm also trying to watch closely. So yeah, you can definitely see the cocktail glass in his hand when he turns.
And then you'll hit Washington
Let me remove the CC from
Street.
Ms. Gilman, if you could just play through 25 seconds.
Yeah, there it is in his hand.
You could pause there.
So Lynn
Have you
said
seen an individual in the
going
parking lot
back
area?
in. I don't know. So a lot of ifs, but again, it's up to the Commonwealth to prove the stuff beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think pretty good to show he walked out with it and we see him outside with it. I don't know if he walked back in. I assume the defense would have the video if he walked back in with it. So
I do.
And do you recognize who that person?
I believe it's Jennifer.
By that, you mean, I'm sorry, Ms. McCabe.
Miss McCabe.
And Ms. Gilman, if you go to the left. Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down, please.
I have one moment, Your Honor?
Nope, never.
So this is our first time.
We have not.
We've never had a conversation.
Never.
We've certainly never interviewed.
And then we get to
Nope,
cross.
never.
So this is our first time speaking.
Yes.
I want to direct your attention to part of your testimony on direct examination when you're questioning by Mr. Lally. You indicated that before Ms. Reed and Mr. O'Keefe left the bar, Ms. Reed had been making some statements about Mr. O'Keefe.
Okay. Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
You indicated that she said that she admired him,
Yes.
that she looked up to Mr. O'Keefe.
Yes.
She always had a way of complimenting him.
Yes.
That he took so much responsibility on as it pertained to the children,
Yes.
and that she did wish that they had more time together.
And again, this was common throughout every one of these witnesses today.
Yes.
They planned a trip together.
Yes.
And she was excited about that.
Correct.
And she indicated that John was excited about that as well.
Yes.
Just before leaving the bar, you indicated that Jennifer McCabe said to Miss Reed, "You're coming with me," correct?
Yes.
She didn't say, "You and John come with me."
No. Correct.
That was directed just to Miss Reed.
Yes.
You're familiar with the town of Canton generally?
Yes.
You know that the distance between the Waterfall Bar and 34 Fairview would be maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes drive.
Probably.
So just after these statements were made, they went to 34 Fairview. 5 minutes later, 7 minutes later, they'd be sitting in front of 34 Fairview, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. All right.
So
Ms.
34 Fairview is only 5 minutes away from where they were. So this timeline, like, make this timeline work if you're the prosecutor. And if we all left together and they're not there 5, 10, 15 minutes, are there calls, are there texts to Karen Reed and John O'Keefe from the people that are at the house? I don't know. I assume they did cell phone downloads and a lot of that stuff's going to come out. I hope. Let's listen to redirect because it'll give you an idea. Again, I've kind of just been telling you what they've been saying on redirect. This is it for you to hear. It's very similar to what he's asked on redirect to multiple witnesses.
Anything?
Just very briefly, Your Honor. So, Mrs. Kolokithas, with reference to your relationship with John O'Keefe, as far as what you were relaying was what the defendant had said to you at the bar that night, correct?
Correct.
And fair to say you didn't have any conversation with Mr. O'Keefe in reference to relationship or trips or anything like that?
Not that night. No.
And as far as your relationship with Mr. O'Keefe is, do you have any sort of discussions at any point in time about sort of his relationship with Ms. Reed or anything going on in that relationship?
He didn't tell me personal things. No.
You didn't have that type of relationship, correct?
Correct.
And this time out on January 28th, that was the first time that you had been out socially with the defendant, Ms. Reed, correct?
Correct.
And so as far as what went on behind sort of closed doors at their home or anything like that, you didn't know anything about
I did not know.
it? Nothing further.
I have one question, Your Honor, if I may. But what you did observe between the two of them that night, to use your words, they were lovey-dovey.
They were.
All right. Ms. Kolokithas, you want
That's basically how it went with every witness. Great stuff about the relationship coming out on cross. He would say, but you don't really know him that well. No, I don't. So it pacifies it a little bit by the Commonwealth. Then the defense will get up and say, but that night you saw him. They were lovey-dovey that night, the night she then decided to kill him just hours later. Flora, you know, I know you're not for either side, but tell the truth. Doing my best to tell the truth. Not saying I don't miss things, right? Not saying I don't miss things listening and watching all this testimony. I'm sure there are things coming out in this trial that I'm missing. And a lot of you guys are telling me. And if you're talking about the Brian Higgins stuff coming out already, I didn't know you guys pointed that out. Maybe it has already come out. I'm sure we'll hear about it again. Nick TTT said, do we trust Greeks or not, Peter? Apparently not, from the person you just heard from. I think I know what your dad would say. They seem like very good people, very believable. Thank you, Nick. I agree. Generally, I agree. I thought they fought about him cheating on her. That was in the Commonwealth's opening statement. I'm not sure if it's come out in evidence yet. I don't think that I have heard it. I definitely didn't hear anybody say that they heard them fighting about it at the bar. We'll just throw that out there. Don San Juan said, appreciate your analysis here. FBI released exculpatory evidence. Let's be real. Reasonable doubt was achieved with that act. Proctor, Google search, unrecorded interview. Tell me what I'm missing. How is this not a frame? So I definitely don't think there's been enough proof to prove a frame to me from what I've seen. Okay. I'll just say that. But there's far from proof beyond a reasonable doubt that she committed any crimes. So we're 7 days in. Should be a lot of evidence, should be a long time. It doesn't feel like a lot. Feels like this trial's got a long way to go, and the Commonwealth is still going to have every opportunity to prove this case beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. So my mind's still open. I'm still waiting to see exactly how all of this works. It has come out that they fought about it on vacation, but not at the bar. Right. In order for her to have a depraved mind, depraved heart, second-degree killing that night, something would have had to happen that night. You can't be lovey-dovey in love. I love you so much, and I hit you with my car, and it's second degree. That's not how second degree works. Something would have had to make her mad at him to want to do this. Unless it's like felony murder or overly reckless or whatever. But to me, this, if anything, it's a negligent homicide. That's what it seems like if, in fact, they can prove she hit him with her car. Ashley said, what, if anything, has the Commonwealth proven? I mean, I definitely think they proved that some people heard her say, I hit him, and that might be some kind of an admission. They proved that he was in bad shape in the front yard. They proved that she was there when they showed up and found him. I'm reaching. I think that's about all they've proved at this point. And the timeline of him getting in the ambulance and going to the hospital and things like that. Yeah, the vacation stuff has come out in evidence. But I mean, like, they didn't, I thought, okay, let me just, maybe I'm not relaying my thoughts. I thought they were going to say that night, something came back up to revert back and have that conversation. You know, sometimes couples do that. They bring up old crap and they fight about stuff that happened a long time in the past. And I thought that's what they were going to say, is connect those dots, that had come up again that night. They were fighting about that when this happened. That's what I thought. Again, at this point, I'm trying to search for dot connecting, which I shouldn't do. I just need to wait, see how they connect the dots to prove what happened that night. That's really how it should go. Danny said, it seems the prosecution is helping the defense with their witnesses so far. Crazy theory, along with the movie plot of this being a cover-up. I'd add that the FBI has made a deal with the prosecution, but to bust these popos. That would be wild. That would be wild. KZ said, Sergeant Good testified Brian Higgins was at the station. Okay, thank you. And I assume there's going to be more of that to come. Yes, they did prove it was snowing. They did prove it was snowing. But they didn't prove, and this is my problem, they proved it was snowing, but they didn't prove how that snow has affected whether anybody would see him or what that would do to his body or why he was in the state he was in or if anybody would have seen him from the house. They haven't really done a good job of really proving it, in my opinion. Have you watched the rest today, Peter? If anything, the Jen McCabe attempt to separate Karen Reed and the buffoons playing boxing, swing torn. Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. Yes, I watched the whole part of today, and I've heard different mixed messaging that it might be Chris Albert tomorrow. It might be Jen McCabe tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Ashley Harris said, I hope you enjoyed the little treat I left for you on Twitter. I'm not sure. I got to check that out. I don't know if you just did it now. I haven't checked it recently. But what I did do today is a Daryl Brooks update from the case with Erica Patterson. A bunch of you sent me that on Instagram and Twitter. That's going to go at 9:45 tonight. In about 5 minutes, you'll automatically be redirected there. So make sure you hit the like button here. Make sure you subscribe. Azam said she doesn't have a question, but just want to thank you and John for all the lives and premieres. Chad Daybell, Karen Reed, Brian Koberger, all at the same time, and now Daryl Brooks. Yes, that's what's coming. And Azam, thank you for the easy segue into the redirect. That's all I've got tonight, though. I'm tired. I'm ready for a half day tomorrow. It's a short day in Daybell and in Karen Reed tomorrow, which is great. You guys are the best. I appreciate you keeping me honest, reminding me anything I'm missing that's coming out, solving this case together. Who done it? He did have the cocktail glass when leaving the Waterfall Bar. Thank you, Lenovo, for gifting memberships and everybody else that joined us tonight, asked questions, left comments, liked the video. You guys are the best. I appreciate you so much. Make sure you check out that Daryl Brooks video. It was pretty interesting, actually. What a difference from this one to the last time we saw him in court. But that's all I've got. I'm out of here. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.